Throughout your career, you did early blogs, you have a newsletter today. So how has your writing shaped your approach to marketing strategy?
I think it's storytelling. I think at the end of the day, everything that we're doing as marketers boils down to how we tell the story.
How do you stay productive? How do you manage everything on your plate?
It's really about understanding what the big priorities are, right? And what are the strategic thrusts that the organization is focusing on.
Are you using AI at all?
ChatGPT for me is such an important tool. It helps me, strategize. I try and use it less for copywriting. Yeah, I think copywriting needs to come from you.
Hello, and welcome to South Africa Tech Marketers, where I uncover the journeys of marketers who are absolutely thriving in South Africa and beyond in the hope of helping you do the same. My name is Kirsty Lang. I'm a senior content writer working remotely in Cape Town, and I'm super excited about today's guest because this conversation is just as much about craft as it is about career. So before we jump in, a quick shout out to the folks who make this show possible, the Global Talent Company. If you're a marketer in South Africa looking to land your dream remote job, or if you're a global company looking to hire brilliant South African talent, definitely check them out at globaltalent.co. As always, the link is in the show notes. Now, joining me today is Khanyisa Melwa, Marketing Manager for Digital at SABC, a brand we all know and love. Khanyisa is a seasoned brand communication specialist and an independent writer and content creator, among many other things. Khanyisa has worked across multiple industries from media to financial services, and we're going to get into all that today. Khanyisa, thank you so much for making the time to chat.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. I'm really excited to be here.
No, I really appreciate you. I know how busy you are, and it's been difficult kind of getting our calendars to align to make this happen. But I don't want to keep you too long. So let's start with your story. You have worn a lot of hats in your career. I'd love to know what first drew you to marketing and how your path kind of unfolded.
Basically, I think what drew me to marketing was storytelling, right? I grew up as a kid who loved drama and the arts. It was the love of storytelling and really gripping audiences and trying to entertain them. And so that led me to a path where I studied PR at Nelson Mandela University, Public Relations Management. And that was my first foray into the world of marketing and communications, right? I then began my career at Nelson Mandela University, working as an intern there under the likes of Lebohang Hashatse and Vuyo Bongela, which was a great experience and a great introduction into this world. But then again, I think I've told you this before, I haven't had a linear path in the marketing and communications industry, where I followed a certain path from internship to just growing within the ranks from a corporate perspective or wherever. Mine has been all over the place. So I'm not going to go into detail around, where I've moved around, but, I've moved around quite a bit from higher education to agency environments to tech as well, working for a digital audience measurement called Narrative. A few years ago. And over there, I was the account manager looking after accounts like Media24 and helping them to understand their audiences online, right? So that was a really great experience. And then went over to PepsiCo, working in the leadership program that they had. So as part of the leadership program, that gave me a really full view of the FMCG ecosystem, right, from a commercial perspective. So working across go-to-market and distribution, to shopper marketing, brand marketing, insights and analytics. So that gives you an idea of how broad my experience has been and my exposure. And then I got a call from my current GE, who was then the head of communications at EPPF, and he was looking for a comms specialist. And I was having a jowl at PepsiCo, and I was like, what? Why are you bringing me to EPPF, a pension fund? Why would I go to that? And he really sold it to me. And I think I've been attracted to challenges in my career as a result thereof. And so I moved over to EPPF, and we rebranded EPPF. We grew the digital channels and grew digital adoption within the organization. Changed around internal comms. So that experience, even though I was reluctant to go into, was actually a net positive at the end. And I'm now at SABC working as a digital marketing manager. Um, and this in and of itself is another challenge. We all know that SABC is under immense pressure at the moment. So the media environment is quite competitive, and so I find myself in another challenging role, another challenging environment, and yeah, that's been the career journey so far.
Okay, so I, as a former journalist, also I was at Media 24, so I wonder if we overlapped during our times working with the company. But what I do want to get into is your work at SABC now. I'm fascinated by the intersection between kind of media and marketing and how you do that, because a little bit earlier we kind of chatted about how you researched at university, how the can you, I mean, we talked about this off camera, but I would love it if you would just kind of explain that again, because I think it ties in so beautifully with your current role. So you were researching kind of the problem with digital media in the world of Google and Meta. And yeah, if you could get into that, I would love that.
100%. It's so weird. When you do things in your life and your career, you never think that it's actually going to come back and be beneficial later on. So, in my BTech year, I did a media studies research project that looked into the political economy of digital media in South Africa, and I paid particular attention to the likes of Daily Maverick, because that's a digital native news product that we have in South Africa.
Incredible publication.
100%, yeah. And so what my research focused on is looking at the dwindling advertising revenue that online news publications are now experiencing and are facing as a result of big tech and the innovations of big tech around targeted marketing, programmatic, and so advertisers are choosing to use Google ads as well as Meta ads in order to reach their audiences more effectively and more precisely, because you can actually target them easier, versus the old model of media buying, which was to strike a deal with a media company and you'd sell certain space and all of that. So now you can actually automate that entire process and bid for your audiences and stuff like that. So that was what I was looking into. But what that does ultimately is that it disempowers the online news publications, right? And it has an adverse impact on the ability to maintain strong media institutions in the country, and by consequence, how do we maintain our democracy, right?
Because yes, oh my gosh,
yeah,
because
media is an important watchdog, for our politics. So yeah, that was the research thrust essentially.
Okay, well, now you are at SABC, so you are kind of on the front lines of this issue, I would imagine. So SABC, for our international listeners, it stands for South African Broadcasting Company? Commission?
Corporation.
Company? Corporation. I was close. Okay, yes, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm a media professional. So South African Broadcasting Corporation, but you work on the marketing side of things. So I'd love to kind of get into your role, what you do day to day, how it ties into that pretty intense problem that media all over the world is facing. But yeah, if you could get into that.
Yeah, 100%. So yes, I'm the digital marketing manager, and at the moment, my real focus is on SABC Plus, which is our digital streaming platform, right?
Nice.
So that has been a really nice challenge I've had to sink my teeth into, looking at how we grow our digital streaming platform in the South African market, in order for us to be able to generate revenue, right? The business is being very bullish about this platform to say, this is where the world is moving. This is where our audiences are moving. We've grown tremendously and actually exceeded targets in the short space of time that the product has been relaunched. So it relaunched last year, July, and then we reached 1 million in less than a year. 1 million registered users in less than a year. So the growth has been astronomical, and it keeps growing from strength to strength. So it's a beast on its own. But also the challenge that we're now faced with is how do we monetize? How do we monetize this thing? But also balancing out the public service media mandate, which is to educate inform, and entertain. And so that's the problem that we're currently
Yeah.
seized with. But the business has a corporate plan, and we have a strategy in place at the moment that we're working towards in order to try and get that revenue. I was in a meeting yesterday that speaks about how we're thinking about monetizing this platform and growing this platform. And so it's really exciting times at the moment at SABC, challenging times nonetheless, but really excited about what's possible and how we're working towards that.
Yeah, I love that. I am going to be following your journey so closely now because I think having worked in media, I worked in print media. So that was like a whole other thing. That was, I felt like it sounds terrible, but I felt like I was on a sinking ship, right? And media in South Africa is so important. Obviously, SABC has a whole lot of programming, but their news arm and their journalism arm is so strong and so important. So yeah, I'm going to be following your journey very, very closely, but I'm getting way off tangent. I feel like we could have 10 podcasts on this. Maybe we should do a mini series. But your work specifically, what does your role look like day to day? What kind of stuff are you working on at the minute?
Cool. So I look after, like I said, SABC Plus. So I ostensibly serve as the marketing manager for SABC Plus, looking at the brand at an integrated level. So above the line, below the line, as well as digital. So that's my role, right? How do we build this brand, SABC Plus, and make sure that Kirsty knows about it and is watching her favorite
Kirsty needs
content
to
on
know.
SABC.
Yeah.
on SABC, and really, growing the platform and making it as ubiquitous and as accessible to as many South Africans as possible. So that's on the one hand what I focus on, and on the other hand, it's about growing the corporate brand as well from an online and digital perspective, right? So my team looks after the social media elements from a corporate brand point of view, CRM as well, and over time looking into paid media and SEO. So that's the day to day essentially is growing the brand, the SABC Plus brand from an integrated level, but also looking after the corporate brand in terms of social media and broader digital elements.
Okay, wow. So basically everything is what I'm hearing. Just handling it all. That's a big job.
It is quite challenging.
Yeah, but I mean, just kind of looking at your career history and I keep saying this, but how many hats you've worn, you're so well positioned to do this.
Yeah, I think it's the I call it a mixed masala of a career journey, really, because I've done a lot. I've done a bit of this and a bit of that, and so it's really primed me well to be in a position like this to say I've got brand marketing experience, I've got corporate communications experience, I've got digital experience, I've got writing experience and content production and content creation. I've done all of that work, and now it's coming all in one pot essentially, and I'm having to pull from different hats and different parts of my brain to say, okay, this comes in here, and how do we make it work? So yeah, it's a mixed masala that's becoming a benefit now.
I love that. Okay, so you mentioned your writing practice, and I've just kind of been going through your LinkedIn, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it's been fairly consistent throughout your career. You did early blogs, you have a newsletter today. So how has your writing shaped your approach to marketing strategy?
100%. So I think it's storytelling, Kirst. I think at the end of the day, everything that we're doing as marketers boils down to how we tell the story, right? Tell the story of our brand, the value proposition, the USP. How do we get that across? Storytelling is the most effective way of getting any kind of buy-in from an audience, and so I think that's how my writing practice over the years. I would love to be more consistent. I'm not as consistent as I would love to be, So I think that's something I can definitely work on. But I think it's really helped me think about ideas and synthesize ideas and be able to tell stories and communicate those ideas in a way that makes sense, right? And so that I think that's the real skill, and also relating to people, right? I think one of the things that we must always understand as marketers is that we're talking to people at the end of the day, right? And when you are writing something, you always have to have the audience in mind. And so when you're building a strategy, likewise, you must always have that user in mind and that audience in mind to say, okay, if we're solving this problem for this particular audience segment, what is it about this person that I need to know, right? What ticks them off? What are their pain points?
What ticks them off is such a good prompt.
You know,
so
you need to understand all of that so that you understand how your product or your service really speaks to their needs at the end of the day. And I think those are the similarities and things that I can definitely take from writing to say this is how I also approach marketing in general.
I love that you raised storytelling, because I honestly, I've had some incredible guests on the past couple of weeks, and all of them have framed it in a very similar way. Yeah, I love that. That really resonates with me as a fellow writer and creator. Khanyisa, with so much going on, I would imagine SABC is probably quite a frantic place to work. It is huge. How do you stay productive? How do you manage everything on your plate? I think folks will be really curious to figure out that push and pull.
Sure.
Yeah, big question.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. And you're quite right. SABC is a beast. It's a big organization. It's one with a long-standing legacy and heritage as well. And so I've had to come in and really understand how things move and how things work. There's a certain rhythm at SABC, a certain ways of working, which is very different to anything I've ever experienced. It's also my first time working in broadcast media, right? And so that's been a challenge for me to try and understand, the organization itself and where to pull and where to push. However, when you speak about, how do I manage everything on my plate and the different moving parts, it's really about understanding what the big priorities are, right? And what are the strategic thrusts that the organization is focusing on, and making sure that you spend more time on those things than the other noise, because there's a lot of noise happening, right?
Yes.
There's so much happening, and people are going to pull you in this direction and that direction. But sometimes to kind of center yourself, to bring that focus, it's really a matter of saying, okay, cool, I see what's happening, I see where everyone is moving, but what's the most important thing, and what's going to help us drive revenue, what's going to help us drive efficiency, what's going to help us actually grow this platform called SABC Plus, and also grow our brand as SABC in general. So that's been the way in which I kind of think about things in order to manage the stress and the priorities in that way.
Yeah, that ties in really well with something you said before we hit record. I loved it. You said one of your mentors, I think it was at Nelson Mandela University, they taught you marketing is just like, it can be such a box ticking exercise where you could just kind of, okay, this is a task that needs to be done. And you kind of just like get into the rhythm, whether that's content creation or paid ads or whatever the case is. But actually that can kind of just create a lot of noise for you, rather than kind of, and this is something that I am so guilty of. I love a little bit of admin. I know that sounds chaotic, but like I love just like getting stuff done. And then so often I'll kind of not forget, but just like get too busy to kind of step away and look at the big picture. And I love that you've highlighted that in terms of productivity as well, because at the end of the day, what is going to drive the most impact is the question that I think great marketers are asking themselves every single day, because we all have so much on our plates, right?
100%. You're quite right. Yeah.
That wasn't even a question. I'm just like saying stuff and expecting.
I agree with you unequivocally.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. That just like unlocked something. Not unlocked something, but just like it like highlighted something in my brain, because yeah, that's a challenge for me right now.
Yeah, and I think, look, it happens, and I also get stuck in that sometimes, where it's just an admin day, and I just have to get things done and all of that. But it's so important to just pull yourself back. So what I usually do is at the beginning of each quarter, I speak to my my now big boss and mentor, and I ask him what's the big thing that's happening. What are the big conversations at Exco at the moment?
Yes.
What are you guys talking about there that I need to focus on at an operational level, right? So I always try and tie in what I'm doing at an ops level to what Exco is talking about, so that whatever decisions I'm making, I know that they're actually going to make it a bigger impact further down the line. So I think that's just one of the ways in which I think about it. Is that, okay, I need to understand what's happening at the top in order to align it with what I'm doing right now.
Oh my God, that is such a great tip. Like, just what are the conversations happening at the top? Because obviously those are the things that folks are caring about most at the moment. And, the head of C-suite, whatever, whoever is leading your company doesn't care about, that you reply to all the emails, or, that you SEO optimized a blog post within an inch of its life. They care about very specific projects per quarter. And that is such great advice. That's such a good conversation to have with your manager.
Yep, 100%.
Oh man, I'm writing that down. Okay, I'm gonna take that with me moving forward. And that's such a universal problem. I think even at big companies, that is, an issue, but it's also a problem at startups, where I had a conversation with a young marketer the other day who was like, there are projects coming left, right, and center, and everyone's excited about everything. And I kind of just don't know where to focus my energy. And I was like, well, just ask. Say, great, I'd love to work on this project. But what is the priority? What would you like me to deprioritize in order to get this thing done?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's universal. Are you using AI at all?
I am. I am. I love me some ChatGPT.
Hey.
I love me some ChatGPT. I think I'm guilty of, when I find something that works for me, I just stick to it. And so I haven't explored the Geminis that much. I've played around on X, but ChatGPT for me is such an important tool for day to day. It helps me think through problems. It helps me strategize. I try and use it less for copywriting. I don't think. I think copywriting needs to come from you, really. But from a strategic and planning level, I love using ChatGPT to just think through ideas with me. Yeah.
That's such a good, what you mentioned about copywriting as well. I'm also finding that I can just tell from a mile away now, and it's not the dashes or, things everyone's talking about, the M dash or all of those AI tells. But for me, it's not even those things. Past couple of days, I've really noticed it more on websites and stuff. And I'll look at a new tool and here's their website. And I'm like, I can see ChatGPT wrote that.
Right?
That, that blurb or whatever. I can tell because it's just the rhythm of it. And AI has a tone, no matter how much you prompt it, it always does the thing. And that immediately shuts my brain off. I don't know, I feel like now I'm looking for more human connection than ever before. And I'm like, if I can tell that you just fed a prompt in and stuck, this blurb or cover line or headline or whatever, and I can tell that there's no piece of you in it, I'm not interested. The marketing has already failed.
Isn't that weird? Because I read an insight earlier this year or late last year, I can't remember now, that spoke about how the more technologically advanced we become as a society and more digitally inclined we become with AI, streaming platforms, all of these things that are digital now, the more we yearn for a more human connection. It's such a paradox, right? But that's what happens. So with streaming platforms, Spotify and all of these things, and how we entertain ourselves and consume our content, there's also been a return to more analog ways of living and enjoying stuff, right? So vinyl, for example, at least within millennial circles,
proud millennial here.
Vinyl is becoming a thing again, right? Where I enjoy. There's a place here in Joburg called Neighborhood. Neighborhood.
Yeah. I know it. Yes.
And they play vinyl, exclusive vinyl evenings, and I'm just like, that's so cool, right? Because we live in a very fast-paced home amapiano era. Everything must be boom, boom. But sometimes we just want to take a step back and be human again, right? And so what you're saying about how with AI, you can see it from a mile away, and you're yearning for that human connection from a writing perspective. It also speaks to the broader, I think, sentiment around that. Is that sometimes we go back to what we used to know. I'm also looking into getting a DVD player now, because I really am. I'm like, I miss the days of being able to hold a CD,
Blu-ray.
Right? The VHS era. I want to collect VHSs now and see, how I consume content that way. So I don't know. We're advancing technologically, but then there's still a yearn for those olden days and that old way of consuming content, which was so unique and special and
Gosh,
nostalgic.
I'm feeling nostalgic right now. One of the things that's been coming up for me in a couple of conversations with some marketers that I really aspire to be like is this kind of move back to humanity. And I think the marketers that get it right are the ones who are going to know how to use AI to make them do certain things faster, or make them a little bit more productive, or get them from 0 to 1. But like be able to kind of like tear that apart and put it back together again in a way that is them. So a really great example, I had a conversation with a marketer at Doist earlier this week, Naomi Little. She has a fantastic follow if anyone is looking for someone to follow. And she was talking about how she makes YouTube videos, and I do as well. And it's really tough. And it seems really easy, but it's really tough. And so she's like started leaving her bloopers in. And she's like, she had like a piece of hair stuck on her face, and she was going to like re-record and edit that out. And that's like an extra half an hour onto the task, right? But then she was like, actually, no. Like I'm human, and I'm going to get the hair out of my face, and I'm just going to carry on. And it seems like such a lame little thing. And it kind of looks unpolished, but is that like a lack of polish what folks are going to be looking for?
Yeah. And that's what you also find on social media, right? When you look at content creators on TikTok, I think TikTok is such a treasure trove, to be honest with you, because you find such great content creators there, such unique content, such authentic content, and you find that the engagement on that content is actually incredible, right?
Yeah,
because people relate to that, right? People relate to that everyday boring content, mundane, content of someone just going to work and just taking you through their day in a very authentic way, as opposed to the hyper produced, look at me, this is so perfect, this is my perfect life, way of doing things. So there really is a need for us to look at that content in a more authentic way, and produce content more authentically, because that's what resonates. That's what people actually want. They don't want the polished you, they want the authentic you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you for coming down that rabbit hole with me. I didn't even plan to talk about that, but I was like, I'm going to ask Khanyisa about AI, and it's just really nice to be on the same page as someone about it. I have so many mixed feelings. But that will derail us if we continue anymore. Khanyisa, last question I wanted to ask you is, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you had known at the beginning of your career?
Two things really. When I read this question earlier, two things really came to mind. Number one, I remember early in my career, working agency side, I made a really stupid mistake. I didn't pay attention to detail. So you know how you get those big checks, right? It was for an internal staff activation at Time Bank at the time. We wanted to run a competition. We wanted to give someone a big check to say, hey, you've won. So I went through the entire rigmarole of getting it designed and everything. And I didn't check the specifications in terms of how big this thing was going to be, right? So I skipped right through that, and I trusted that the creative team and the production team were just going to do it. But I, as the AE, didn't actually do my due diligence there. It came out as a small little check like this.
Oh. Like what size? If I'm not watching the video, what size is that? About 30 centimeters when you were expecting like a giant like person size.
As opposed to like a big one like that. So I got into a bit of trouble, but luckily my bosses at the time, forgave me. It wasn't such a big cost, but it hit me hard, because I was just like, I don't want to make that mistake again. because sometimes I think the cost that we wrote off then was about 7,000 rand, but
What? For a
yeah,
check? Because it was smaller. Surely it would cost more if it was bigger?
yeah, but I don't know what the exact details were, but I just know that it was around 7K in terms of how much we lost because of that
Mate.
mistake, right? So now later in my career, I am so fastidious about the small detail and the small things. And to my agencies, I might seem like such a stickler, but I drill down into the detail. I look at those CEs and I interrogate every single cost. I'm that kind of detail oriented person right now because of that one mistake. Because I'm just like, I never want to lose
Carrying the trauma.
any company, any company that I work for, any money, because I just don't want to be seen as that. So that's something, early on in my career that I learned. And then another thing that I'm learning now, in fact, more and more as I grow with my current mentor, is the importance of being proactive and just taking ownership and taking initiative. Sometimes you'll wait forever for permission from whoever to do something, but the importance of literally taking the bull by the horns and running with things and moving along. I find that to be such an important skill and a lesson that I've now learned and practicing in my life, is just to say, I'm not going to wait for that. I'm actually just going to go ahead and do it. And you'll find me along the way. You'll
find me down there. No, I think I love that. And I think that is something that most South Africans are so good at. Like, we just figure it out and we like to kind of just keep moving and keep pushing things forward. I will also say, like, I have never, and you kind of, when you're a young marketer, you kind of feel like you kind of have to wait for permission or like wait for someone to tell you to do something. But like, if you kind of know the direction you need to be going in and you're like, someone's bottlenecking the project or whatever it is, I've never gotten in trouble for moving ahead or like pushing forward or getting further down the line. Like, that has never been an issue. In fact, it's always pretty much worked out, like that people are like, great, thank you for handling that. So that is great advice. I love that. Also, I'm so sorry about the check. I've also made some mistakes that just like stick with me.
It was so traumatic.
We carry them all. With me, the mistake was when I was working for You Magazine, I wrote an article about Ronaldo. I knew nothing about soccer when I started working there. When I left there, I knew a lot. Anyway, I wrote an article about Ronaldo and I had like a stats box. This is so lame. And I like wrote some stats incorrectly and people were mad. They emailed the editor. And she came to me. She was Linda Peterson at the time. She is the most wonderful human being. And I was a little bit terrified of her. And she was like, listen, you cannot do this again. All right. It's fine, but don't let it happen again. And I was like, okay. And now, listen, the details, the devil is in the details.
It is. It really is.
That's an amazing learning. Khanyisa, thank you. That is everything that I was hoping to cover today. Thank you for just sharing all of your story and your insights and just coming down some rabbit holes with me. I love it when shows go that route. Where can people find you if they want to connect or read your newsletter or follow your work?
Thank you so much. So I'm on LinkedIn, Khanyisa Melwa, just that. And then on social media, again, I'm very boring, Khanyisa Melwa, very simple.
Good, it's the brand.
That's where you find me. And then my Substack newsletter, again, also is Khanyisa Melwa .substack. And you can find me there. I do want to go back and be more consistent with that. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And also, thank you so much to you. I think this has been such a great conversation to have as well. And it's something that I've been looking to do, is to connect with other marketers and be part of the community from a South African marketing point of view. So this really does resonate with me, and I appreciate it so much.
Well, that is the best segue any guest has ever given me, because if you are looking to connect with marketers like Khanyisa and me, come and join us in the South African Tech Marketers community. It's a Slack. It's a growing space for connection, learning, and discovering remote marketing opportunities. You will find it in the link. You'll find the link in the show notes. I'm going to send it to Khanyisa right now, so he's going to be in there. Please, Khanyisa, join. Yeah, and that is everything. Thank you so much. I'm going to go and subscribe to Khanyisa's newsletter.
Awesome. Thank you so much.